Commander Jake Morrison stared at the alien standing in front of him through the holographic display. The creature looked like it was made of living crystal, with light moving inside its body like water. Its name was Zethkar, and it spoke with a voice that sounded like ice breaking. "Your planet has been chosen," the alien said. "The Galactic Council has decided that Earth will join our empire. You have 10 days to accept. If you refuse, we will take your world by force." Jake felt his heart beat faster, but he kept his face calm. Behind him, on the bridge of the Earth defense ship Liberty, his crew watched in silence. Lieutenant Amy Palmer stood at the weapons station, her hands tight on the controls. Danny Hayes sat at communications, his fingers moving quickly to record everything. Lisa Grant monitored the sensors, tracking the alien ship that hung in space just outside Earth's orbit. "We need time to think about this," Jake said carefully. Zethkar made a sound that might have been laughter. "There is nothing to think about. Every species joins the Council eventually. Some choose peace. Others choose destruction first, then peace. The result is always the same." The alien's image flickered and disappeared. Jake turned to his crew and saw the anger in their eyes. They all knew what this meant. For 5 years, humanity had known about the aliens. For 5 years, Earth had tried to be friendly, to trade, to learn. And now this. The Galactic Council controlled 2,000 species across this part of the galaxy. They had ships everywhere, weapons beyond imagination, and they had never lost a war. "Get me Earth Command," Jake said quietly. Priority 1. Within an hour, every leader on Earth knew about the ultimatum. President Alan Carter called an emergency meeting in the underground bunker beneath New York. Generals, scientists, and diplomats gathered from around the world. The room was full of worried faces. General Nicole Freeman spoke first. She was a tall woman with gray hair and hard eyes. "We always knew this might happen. We've been preparing." "Preparing for what?" one diplomat asked. "They have thousands of ships. We have maybe 200. They have weapons that can burn cities from orbit. What chance do we have?" Dr. Peter Ross stood up. He was a thin man with glasses who looked like he should be teaching students, not building weapons. "We have one advantage," he said. "They think we're primitive. They think we'll be easy to defeat, aren't we?" someone asked. Peter smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "The Council has ruled for thousands of years. They haven't fought a real war in 8 centuries. They just show up with big fleets and everyone surrenders. They've forgotten how to actually fight." Dr. Helen Curtis, Peter's partner in the weapons division, activated a holographic display. Images of strange devices appeared in the air. "For 30 years we've been building weapons in secret. Weapons the Council has never seen. They use energy shields and plasma cannons. We have railguns that fire metal slugs at incredible speed. We have missiles with artificial intelligence that can think for themselves. And we have nuclear weapons designed for space combat." President Carter looked around the room. "So you're saying we can fight them?" "I'm saying we can hurt them," Nicole answered. "I'm saying we can make them bleed. And when the other species in the Council see that, things will change." Admiral Henry Clark pulled up a star map. "The Council controls their empire through fear. If we can prove they're not invincible, other species might rebel. But we need to be smart. We can't fight them head on." Jake Morrison was called into the meeting to give his report. He described the aliens' attitude, the contempt in its voice. "They don't see us as dangerous," he said. "They see us as another primitive species to be absorbed." Casey Jordan, a young analyst with red hair, added her findings. "I've been studying their communications for months. Their military is huge, but it's slow. They haven't updated their tactics in generations. They rely on overwhelming force, not strategy." President Carter stood up and looked at everyone in the room. His face was serious, but his voice was firm. "I need a vote. Do we surrender or do we fight?" The vote was unanimous. Every hand went up for war. Earth would not bow to anyone. Outside the bunker, life continued as normal. People went to work, children went to school, and nobody knew that in 10 days everything would change. But in secret military bases around the world and throughout the solar system, humanity prepared for war. Captain Steve Miller led his team to the outer colonies, the hidden settlements in the asteroid belt and beyond, that the Council didn't know existed. These bases had been built in secret, disguised as mining operations and research stations. Now they would become weapons platforms and supply depots. Engineer Kevin Blake worked day and night upgrading the Liberty's weapons. The ship looked the same from outside, but inside every system had been improved. Maya Holmes, the computer specialist, installed new software that could hack alien systems. If we can get close enough, she said, I can make their own ships attack each other. Pilot Emma Davis trained with her squadron in the new SF-90 Phoenix fighters. These ships were small and fast, built for speed and maneuverability. They could fly circles around the heavy Council warships. Emma was the best pilot Earth had, and she knew it. Let them come, she told her squadron. We'll show them how humans fight. Back on the Liberty, Jake Morrison stood alone in his quarters looking at a picture of Earth on his wall. He thought about his family in California, his sister and her kids who had no idea what was coming. He thought about all the people on Earth who would die if this plan failed. But he also thought about what would happen if they surrendered. Humanity would become just another conquered species, following Council laws, losing their freedom forever. Amy Palmer knocked on his door. Sir, we're ready. All systems are operational. Jake turned to face her. Are you scared, Amy? She thought for a moment. Terrified. But I'm also angry. They came here thinking we'd just give up. They don't know us at all. No, Jake agreed. They don't. And that's going to be their biggest mistake. 10 days passed like minutes. Earth's fleets moved into position, hidden behind moons and planets. Weapons platforms went dark, waiting. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon was ready. And when the Council fleet finally arrived, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in a show of overwhelming force, they found Earth's response waiting for them. The war was about to begin, and the galaxy would never be the same. General Nicole Freeman stood in the war room deep beneath Colorado. Around her, dozens of screens showed military installations across Earth and throughout the solar system. Every base was reporting ready status. Every commander was waiting for orders. The Council's fleet would arrive in 6 days and humanity had work to do. Show me what we have, Nicole said. Dr. Peter Ross stepped forward and activated the main display. A 3-dimensional map of the solar system appeared, filled with colored dots. Each blue dot is one of our ships. Each red dot is a weapons platform. Each green dot is a supply station. How many ships? Nicole asked. 243 warships, not counting fighters and support craft, Admiral Henry Clark answered. He was an older man with white hair, but his eyes were sharp. The Council is bringing at least 500 ships, maybe more. We're outnumbered, but we expected that. Dr. Helen Curtis brought up images of weapons. Our railguns can punch through their shields. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons, not solid projectiles moving at extreme velocity. We've tested this theory with captured Council technology. It works. What about their plasma cannons? Someone asked. They're powerful but slow to recharge, Helen explained. Our missiles are faster and can overwhelm their point defense systems. We've also developed something new. She showed an image of a strange device. Nuclear-shaped charges. When they detonate, they focus the explosion in one direction. One of these can crack a Council cruiser in half. Peter added more information. The Council has been using the same technology for 1,000 years. They haven't innovated because they haven't needed to. Everyone they fight is less advanced than them. We're different. We've been developing new weapons for decades. Captain Steve Miller called in from the asteroid belt. His face appeared on one of the screens, floating against a background of stars. The outer bases are ready, General. We have weapons platforms hidden in 50 different locations. The Council won't see them coming. Good work, Steve, Nicole said. Keep your people hidden until the signal. On Earth, pilot Emma Davis sat in the cockpit of her Phoenix fighter, running through pre-flight checks for the 100th time. Around her, the hangar was full of activity. Mechanics made final adjustments to ships. Other pilots reviewed battle plans. Everyone knew what was at stake. Emma's squadron leader, a veteran pilot named Greg Palmer, walked over to her ship. How are you feeling, Emma? Ready, she said. These ships are incredible. Faster than anything the Council has. More maneuverable, too. Remember the plan, Greg said. Hit and run. Don't try to fight them directly. Use speed and numbers, Emma nodded. She had been flying since she was 16. First in Earth's Air Force, then in space. She was 28 now, and had logged more flight hours than anyone in her squadron. They've never fought against fighter tactics like ours, she said. They use big ships with big guns. We're going to swarm them like bees. In another part of the base, Maya Holmes worked with her team of computer experts. They were all young, most in their 20s, and they understood alien computer systems better than anyone. "I've found a weakness," Maya told her supervisor. "The council ships all communicate with each other using a central network. If we can access that network, we can cause chaos." "Can you hack it?" her supervisor asked. Maya grinned. "Give me 5 minutes inside their communication range, and I'll have their ships shooting at each other." Across the solar system on a hidden moon base, Lieutenant Ben Tucker prepared his destroyer, the Valiant. The ship was smaller than council cruisers but packed with weapons. Ben had spent 3 years in space and knew every trick for hiding a ship from sensors. "We're going to play dead," he told his crew. "Float like debris, power down everything except life support. When they get close, we light them up." His crew liked the plan. They were all volunteers, all willing to risk everything for Earth's freedom. Engineer Sophie Jenkins checked the railgun systems one more time. Communications Officer Linda Shaw made sure their burst transmitters were ready to send quick messages without giving away their position. Back on Earth, Casey Jordan was still analyzing council communications. What she found made her excited. "General Freeman, you need to see this." Nicole came over to Casey's station. "What did you find?" "The council's last major war was 800 years ago," Casey explained. "Since then, they've only fought rebellions from primitive species. Look at their battle formations." She showed tactical diagrams. "They haven't changed in centuries. They just line up their ships and fire. No complex maneuvers, no creative tactics. They've gotten lazy," Nicole said. "Exactly. And there's more. Their command structure is rigid. Every decision has to go through a chain of command that takes time. If we can disrupt their communications, they won't be able to adapt quickly." Nicole smiled. "We're going to use their size against them. The bigger they are, the harder they fall." President Alan Carter made a broadcast to Earth, but it was carefully worded to sound peaceful. "We continue to hope for diplomatic solutions," he said. People watching had no idea that war was days away, but every soldier, every pilot, every person involved in the defense knew the truth. When the council fleet arrived, Earth would fight. Commander Jake Morrison gathered his senior officers on the Liberty. Amy Palmer, Danny Hayes, Lisa Grant, and Kevin Blake all stood around the tactical display. "Here's the plan," Jake said. "We wait behind the moon. When the council fleet arrives, they'll position themselves around Earth. They'll expect us to surrender. Instead, we strike from behind." "What's our target?" Amy asked. "Their command ship," Jake said. "It will be in the center of their formation. If we can damage or destroy it early, their fleet will be confused." "That's suicide," Lisa said. "We'll be outnumbered 100 to 1. "Not if everyone does their job," Jake replied. "The weapons platforms will fire first from multiple directions. The council will have to split their attention. Fighter squadrons will attack from below, and while they're dealing with all that, we hit their command ship hard and fast." Kevin Blake nodded slowly. "It could work, if everything happens at exactly the right time." "It has to work," Jake said, "because if it doesn't, Earth falls." Dr. Peter Ross and Dr. Helen Curtis made final adjustments to the weapons. They worked in a secret facility where humanity's most advanced technology was stored. "Do you think we can win?" Helen asked quietly. Peter was quiet for a moment. "I think we can hurt them badly enough that they'll regret coming here. And maybe that's enough. Maybe other species will see that the council can bleed, and they'll find their own courage." Ryan Foster, a Special Forces commander, briefed his team on a different kind of mission. "While the space battle happens, we're going to key locations on Earth. If the council lands troops, we'll be ready. But our main job is to protect critical infrastructure, power plants, communications hubs, government bunkers." His second-in-command, Claire Watson, checked her weapons. "Do you think they'll try to land troops?" "If the space battle goes badly for them, they might. We need to be ready for anything." As the days counted down, tension grew. Everyone knew the battle was coming, but nobody knew exactly when. The council had said 10 days, and they were very precise. On the 10th day, exactly at noon Greenwich Mean Time, sensors detected the arrival of the council fleet. Admiral Henry Clark watched the displays as hundreds of ships appeared on the edge of the solar system. They began moving toward Earth in a massive formation. "Count them," he ordered. 517 ships, an officer reported. Cruisers, destroyers, carriers, and one massive dreadnought that must be their flagship. "That's our target," Henry said. "Signal all units. Execute the plan on my mark." Throughout the solar system, human ships and weapons platforms came to life. Fighters launched from hidden bases. Ships that had been floating dark in space powered up their engines. And on the Liberty, Commander Jake Morrison sat in the captain's chair and prepared to strike the first blow of the war. The Council fleet moved into orbit around Earth, confident and powerful. They had no idea what was waiting for them. The Council fleet moved into position around Earth like a net closing around prey. Admiral Vornthek stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching Earth grow larger on the view screen. He was a tall alien with blue skin and 4 arms, and he had conquered 17 worlds in his long career. This would be number 18. Prepare the surrender message, he told his communications officer. Standard format. Give them one final chance. The message went out across all frequencies. Vornthek's voice was cold and mechanical through the translation systems. People of Earth, your time has ended. Surrender now and join the Council peacefully. Resist and your cities will burn. You have 1 hour to respond. On Earth, President Alan Carter sat in the command bunker surrounded by military leaders. Everyone looked at him, waiting. He took a deep breath and nodded to the communications officer. Send the response. The message that went out was short and simple. We are humanity. We bow to no one. Vornthek heard the response and felt something he hadn't felt in decades. Surprise. Then he laughed. Foolish creatures. Target their capital cities. Prepare to fire. That was when everything went wrong for the Council. Commander Jake Morrison gave the order from his position behind Earth's moon. All ships fire at will. The Liberty emerged from the moon's shadow at full speed, its railguns already charging. Around it, 20 other Earth ships appeared from hiding spots among the lunar craters. They had been waiting there for days, invisible to the Council's sensors, and now they struck like a hammer. The first railgun slugs crossed the distance in seconds. They were just pieces of metal, but they were moving so fast that when they hit, they carried more energy than bombs. The Eternal Dominion's shields flared bright blue, absorbing the first impacts. But the shields were designed for energy weapons, not solid projectiles, and the fourth slug punched through. The massive piece of metal tore through the flagship's hull, ripping apart 3 decks before exiting the other side. Atmosphere vented into space. Alarms screamed across the ship. Vornthek grabbed his command chair to keep from being thrown across the bridge. Return fire, he shouted. All ships, defend the flagship. But the Council fleet was already under attack from every direction. Weapons platforms that had been hidden throughout the solar system came online. Some were mounted on asteroids. Others floated in the dark between planets. They all fired at once, and the space around Earth filled with streaks of light. Lieutenant Ben Tucker and the Valiant had been floating in space pretending to be debris. Now the destroyer's engines roared to life. They were less than a kilometer from a Council cruiser called the Righteous Path. At point-blank range, Ben's crew fired everything they had. Railguns 1 through 6 fire. Missiles away. Nuclear charge armed and launched. The Righteous Path never had a chance. The railgun slugs hammered its shields down. The missiles tore into its armor, and the nuclear-shaped charge detonated against its hull. The explosion was directed, focused, concentrated on one point. The cruiser broke in half, its 2 pieces spinning away, trailing fire and bodies. Ben felt his ship shake from the blast. Get us out of here. Full speed. From below Earth's orbital plane, Emma Davis led her squadron of Phoenix fighters into the battle. There were 60 fighters in her group, and they moved like a school of fish, perfectly coordinated. Council ships tried to track them with defensive guns, but the fighters were too fast, too small, too agile. Break by wings, Emma ordered. Hit them from all sides. The fighters split into groups of 4 and dove at different targets. Emma locked onto a Council destroyer and fired her missiles. The small weapons streaked forward, their artificial intelligence guiding them around defensive fire. They hit the destroyer's engines, and the ship went dark, dead in space. Greg Palmer took his wing after a carrier, dodging plasma fire that turned space around him bright green. These guys couldn't hit a planet if they were standing on it. He shouted over the radio. On the Liberty, Maya Holmes worked at her station, her fingers flying across controls. She had hacked into the Council communication network. I'm in, she shouted. Feeding them false coordinates now? Across the Council fleet, navigation systems went crazy. Ships received orders to move to positions that would put them in each other's firing lines. Some captains ignored the orders, realizing something was wrong. Others followed them, trusting their computers. The neat formation of the Council fleet began to fall apart. Admiral Vornthek tried to regain control. All ships cease fire. Reform defensive formation. But his orders weren't getting through. The human jamming systems blocked some messages. Maya's hacking corrupted others, and the sheer chaos of the battle made communication nearly impossible. The Council had relied on their superior numbers and firepower. They had never trained for this kind of chaotic, multi-directional combat. Captain Steve Miller watched the battle from the asteroid belt and saw his chance. All outer platforms fire on my mark. Target the ships at the edge of their formation. Hidden weapons platforms throughout the belt opened fire. The Council ships on the outer edge of their fleet suddenly came under attack from behind. They had to choose between defending against the fighters and missiles from Earth or the long-range fire from the asteroids. Many chose wrong. Amy Palmer stood at the Liberty's weapons station calling out targets. Cruiser at Mark III, range 8,000 kilometers, firing. Jake Morrison gripped his chair as the ship shook from weapons fire and impacts against their shields. Lisa, get us closer to that flagship. Kevin, I need more power to forward shields. Shields at 60%, Kevin shouted back. We can't take much more of this. We don't need to survive long, Jake said. We just need to hurt them badly enough that they run. Danny Hayes monitored communications. Sir, I'm picking up panic on their channels. They're reporting heavy casualties. Some ships are requesting permission to withdraw. Not yet, Jake said. Hit them harder. The battle raged for 3 hours. Space around Earth became a graveyard of destroyed ships, both human and alien. The Liberty took heavy damage, but her crew kept fighting. Emma Davis lost half her squadron, but the survivors kept attacking. Ben Tucker's destroyer was barely holding together, but it kept firing. Then something changed. The Eternal Dominion, Vornthex's flagship, took a direct hit from a nuclear charge. The massive explosion tore away a quarter of the ship. The Admiral realized that if he stayed, his entire fleet might be destroyed. All ships, retreat! He ordered. Fall back to hyperspace jump distance. The Council fleet began to withdraw, but it wasn't the organized, disciplined retreat of a professional military. It was chaos. Ships crashed into each other trying to escape. Damaged vessels were left behind, and as they fled, human forces kept attacking, making every meter of their retreat cost them dearly. When the Council fleet finally jumped to hyperspace and disappeared, the space around Earth was quiet, except for the sound of damage reports and rescue operations. Jake Morrison looked at his crew. They were exhausted, injured, some crying with relief, but they were alive. Count our losses, he said quietly. Danny Hayes worked for several minutes before he had the numbers. We lost 38 ships. The Council lost 96 confirmed destroyed, and at least 40 more badly damaged. Around the Liberty, the remaining Earth ships floated in formation. They had taken on the mighty Galactic Council and won the first battle. But everyone knew this was just the beginning. The Council would come back, and next time they would bring everything they had. On Earth, President Carter addressed the planet. Today we proved that humanity will not surrender. We proved that we can fight and we can win, but the war is not over. The Council will return, and we must be ready. In the asteroid belt, Steve Miller looked at the wreckage floating through space and thought about what came next. On the Liberty, Emma Davis climbed out of her fighter, one of only 32 that had survived out of 60. Nicole Freeman coordinated the defense of Earth's damaged orbital stations. The galaxy had just learned something important. Humanity was not another primitive species to be easily conquered. They were warriors, and they would fight for their freedom with everything they had. Admiral Vornthex limped back to Council space with what remained of his fleet. For the first time in 800 years, the Galactic Council had lost a major battle, and they had lost it to a species they had dismissed as insignificant. The war had truly begun. The news of Earth's victory spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. On the Council homeworld, the ruling assembly met in emergency session. They were called the High Council, 20 beings from the oldest and most powerful species in their empire. They had ruled for 3,000 years and they had never known defeat like this. This is unacceptable, one counselor shouted. His name was Drethmore, and his species had been with the Council since the beginning. A primitive species has humiliated us. We must crush them immediately. Others agreed. The chamber filled with angry voices. But one counselor, an ancient being named Lethara, raised her hand for silence. Crushing them will not be easy. They destroyed nearly 100 of our ships. How many more will we lose if we underestimate them again? Then we send more ships, Drethmore said. We send so many that they cannot possibly win. Fleet Admiral Kethrall was called to the assembly. He was the most experienced military commander in the Council, with 200 years of service. I will assemble the largest fleet we have gathered in 3 centuries, he said. 1,200 warships. The humans cannot stand against such force. When can you be ready? Drethmore asked. 2 months. Make it 6 weeks. On Earth, General Nicole Freeman knew the Council would return with overwhelming force. She called a meeting of all senior commanders. Jake Morrison was there, promoted to captain after his actions in the first battle. Emma Davis attended as the new squadron commander, replacing Greg Palmer, who had died covering her retreat. Admiral Henry Clark, Captain Steve Miller, and dozens of others filled the war room. We can't fight them head-on again, Nicole said. Next time they'll bring thousands of ships. We need a new strategy. Dr. Peter Ross stood up. We make them chase us. Hit and run. Guerrilla warfare on an interstellar scale. Explain, Nicole said. The Council controls hundreds of star systems. Their supply lines stretch across thousands of light years. We can't defend Earth against their full strength, but we can strike at their weaknesses. Their supply depots, their communication relays, their isolated outposts. We make them spread their forces thin, trying to protect everything. Captain Tyler Brooks, who had been working undercover in Council space, added his information. The Council's empire is more fragile than it looks. Many species joined them because they had no choice. If those species see that the Council can be hurt, some might rebel. Nicole thought about it. So we become raiders. We hit them everywhere except Earth. We make them too busy to launch another invasion. Exactly, Peter said. And while we're doing that, we build more ships, train more pilots, and prepare for the day they finally come back. The plan was approved. Over the next 6 weeks, Earth became a massive war factory. Every shipyard worked around the clock. New ships rolled out every day. The Phoenix fighter design was improved, made faster and deadlier. Larger ships incorporated the lessons learned from the first battle. Jake Morrison was given command of a new ship, the carrier Independence. It was twice the size of the Liberty and carried 40 fighters. Amy Palmer came with him as his executive officer. Danny Hayes took over as chief communications officer. Lisa Grant became the navigation chief, and Kevin Blake ran the engineering department. We're going hunting, Jake told his crew at their first briefing. Our mission is to disrupt Council operations far from Earth. We strike fast, we hit hard, and we disappear before they can respond. Emma Davis transferred to the Independence with her surviving pilots. They trained new recruits, teaching them the tactics that had worked in the first battle. Speed is life, she told them. The moment you slow down, you're dead. Keep moving, stay unpredictable, and trust your wingmates. Captain Steve Miller took command of a fast attack group based in the asteroid belt. His mission was to raid Council supply convoys. We're pirates now, he told his crews with a grin. But we're pirates with a good cause. Throughout Council space, human operatives began gathering intelligence. Claire Watson, working undercover on a Council trade world, learned the routes of supply ships and the locations of fuel depots. She passed this information back to Earth through secret channels. The raids began 6 weeks after the first battle, just as Council Fleet Admiral Kethrall was preparing to launch his massive fleet. The first target was a fuel depot in the Marcos system, 300 light-years from Earth. Jake Morrison brought the Independence out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Sensors, what do we have? Lisa Grant studied her displays. 1 orbital station, 12 tanker ships, and 4 Council destroyers as escorts. 4 destroyers, Jake mused. We have 40 fighters and our own weapons. Amy, prepare a firing solution on that station. Emma, launch your fighters. Target those destroyers. The Independence swept in at maximum speed. The Council defenders were taken completely by surprise. Emma's fighters swarmed 2 of the destroyers before they could raise shields. The missiles and railgun fire ripped them apart in seconds. The Independence's main guns hammered the orbital station, and it exploded in a ball of fire. Both destroyers down, Emma reported. No losses on our side. The 2 remaining Council destroyers tried to run, but Steve Miller's group jumped in behind them. The Raiders, as his ships were now called, made short work of the fleeing vessels. The entire battle lasted 12 minutes. Destroy the tankers, Jake ordered. Leave nothing they can salvage. Missiles streaked out and turned the fuel tankers into expanding clouds of flame. When the Independence jumped back to hyperspace, The Marco system was left with nothing but wreckage. Similar raids happened across a dozen systems. Captain Tyler Brooks hit a communication relay in the Vex sector. Lieutenant Ben Tucker destroyed a repair facility in the Cortha system. Each raid was quick, brutal, and effective. The Council couldn't predict where humanity would strike next. On the Council homeworld, the High Council watched in frustration as reports came in. "They're everywhere!" Drethmore shouted. "How can one species be in so many places at once?" "They're using hit-and-run tactics," Admiral Kethrell explained. "Small, fast groups striking targets of opportunity. We need to protect our supply lines." "Then protect them," Drethmore demanded. "That would require thousands of ships spread across hundreds of systems," Kethrell said. "It would take years to set up such a defense network." "We don't have years." "Launch your fleet! Destroy their homeworld!" Kethrell assembled his 1,200 ships and began the journey to Earth. It would take 3 weeks to travel the distance. But during those 3 weeks, the raids intensified. Maya Holmes had a new assignment. She worked with a team to develop better hacking tools. "I can break into their systems faster now," she told Nicole Freeman. "Give me access to any Council ship and I can shut it down in minutes." Nicole approved a new mission. "We're going to capture a Council ship intact." "Can you pilot one?" "If I can hack it, I can fly it," Maya said confidently. The mission was given to Captain Steve Miller and a team of Marines led by Ryan Foster. They found a Council cruiser traveling alone through an empty system. Steve's ships damaged its engines but left it mostly intact. Ryan's Marines boarded the ship and fought through its corridors, stunning the crew with non-lethal weapons. Maya Holmes went aboard with them. She reached the bridge and plugged into the ship's systems. "This is incredible," she said, reading data as fast as it appeared. "I have access to their entire fleet database. Positions, routes, codes, everything." "Download it all," Steve said. "We need to leave before reinforcements arrive." The captured Council cruiser, renamed the Trojan by its human crew, became an intelligence goldmine. Casey Jordan spent days analyzing the data. What she found changed everything. "General Freeman, you need to see this," Casey said. "The Council is holding hostage populations from their member species. If any species rebels, the Council threatens to destroy colony worlds full of civilians. That's how they maintain control," Nicole said. "Fear and hostages. But look at this," Casey pulled up more data. "There's a species called the Vexani. They almost beat the Council 60 years ago. They were forced to surrender when the Council threatened to destroy their homeworld, but they never fully accepted Council rule." "Could they be allies?" Nicole asked. "Maybe. If we could show them we're serious about fighting the Council, they might join us." Nicole brought this information to President Carter. "We need allies," she said. "We can hurt the Council, but we can't beat them alone. If we can convince other species to rebel, the Council will collapse from within." Carter approved a diplomatic mission. Captain Tyler Brooks was chosen to make contact with the Vexani secretly. He took a small, fast ship deep into Council territory, using the captured codes from the Trojan to avoid detection. Meanwhile, Admiral Kethrell's massive fleet was approaching Earth. They would arrive in 1 week. Nicole Freeman looked at the strategic displays and knew Earth couldn't stop 1,200 ships. "Not directly. We need to buy time," she told her commanders. "Time for our raids to have an effect. Time for other species to see what we're doing and find their own courage. Time for allies to emerge." Jake Morrison looked at the mission briefing and smiled grimly. "You want us to slow down a fleet of 1,200 ships with a carrier and a few raiders?" Admiral Kethrell stood on the bridge of his flagship, the absolute authority, watching the stars pass by as his fleet of 1,200 ships traveled toward Earth. He was confident. No force in the galaxy could stand against such power. The humans had been lucky once, but luck would not save them now. Then the attacks began. The Independents appeared from hyperspace directly in the path of the Council fleet. Before Kethrell could order his ships to fire, Emma Davis and her 40 fighters were already among his formation. They targeted sensors and communication arrays, not trying to destroy ships but to blind and confuse them. "Return fire," Kethrell ordered. "Destroy that carrier!" But by the time his gunners locked onto the Independents, Jake Morrison had already jumped back to hyperspace. The entire attack lasted 90 seconds. 3 Council ships had damaged sensors and 2 had lost their communication systems. "Barely a scratch," Kethrell's second officer said. "They can't stop us with these tactics." "No," Kethrell agreed. "But they can annoy us. Increase vigilance, Post picket ships around the fleet. 4 hours later, Captain Steve Miller's raiders hit the Council fleet from a different angle. They targeted the supply ships at the rear, destroying 2 before jumping away. 8 hours after that, Lieutenant Ben Tucker appeared on the fleet's left flank and fired nuclear charges into a group of destroyers before escaping. The pattern continued for days. The human ships would appear without warning, strike quickly, and vanish before the Council could respond. They never engaged in direct combat. They just hurt the fleet piece by piece and disappeared. Catherall grew frustrated. His fleet's speed had slowed as captains became cautious, constantly scanning for threats. His officers jumped at shadows, and the loss of ships, while small, was constant. 3 ships here, 5 ships there, 1 ship every few hours. Death by 1,000 cuts. How are they finding us? He demanded. How do they know where to strike? Maya Holmes, working from a listening post in the asteroid belt, smiled as she monitored Council communications. The codes from the captured ship let her track the fleet's position perfectly. They have no idea we can hear everything they say, she told her team. While Catherall dealt with raiders, Captain Tyler Brooks reached the Vexani homeworld. The Vexani were a proud species, reptilian and strong, who had been forced into the Council against their will. Their leader, War Chief Corvin, met with Tyler in secret. Why should we trust you? Corvin asked. His voice was a low growl. The Council has threatened to destroy our colonies if we rebel. What can you offer us? Tyler showed him recordings of the first battle and the recent raids. We offer you a chance to fight back. The Council isn't invincible. We've proven that. If you help us, we can free your people. Corvin watched the battle recordings with growing interest. Your species has courage, but courage alone won't defeat the Council. We have more than courage, Tyler said. We have strategy, we have determination, and we have a plan. The Council maintains power through fear. When other species see that fear is based on lies, their empire will crumble. Corvin thought for a long moment. If I help you, many of my people will die. If you don't help us, you'll be slaves forever. The war chief made his decision. What do you need? Information. Tell us where the Council is weakest. Tell us which other species might rebel, and when the time comes, be ready to fight. Back near Earth, the Council fleet finally arrived, but it was not the overwhelming force that had left Council space. Catherall had lost almost 200 ships to the constant raids. His remaining ships were on edge, their crews exhausted from constant alerts. General Nicole Freeman watched the fleet approach and knew Earth still couldn't win a direct battle. But she also knew the Council's weakness now. We're not fighting for Earth, she told her commanders. We're fighting for every species the Council has enslaved. If we can hold out long enough, their whole empire will turn against them. Admiral Henry Clark had a new strategy. We don't defend Earth itself. We defend the space around Earth. Make them come through a minefield of weapons platforms, fighters, and coordinated fire. Every kilometer they advance costs them ships. The Council fleet moved toward Earth cautiously. Catherall had learned to respect human tactics. He sent scout ships ahead. Many of them hit mines and were destroyed. He tried to clear paths with long-range fire, but the weapons platforms were hidden and shielded. When his fleet finally reached Earth orbit, he had lost another 100 ships just getting there. He now had 1,000 ships against Earth's 300. Still overwhelming odds, but not the crushing superiority he had expected. All ships prepare to bombard the planet, Catherall ordered. Target military installations first, then major cities. We will break their will to fight. But before he could give the fire order, something unexpected happened. New ships appeared on his sensors. A lot of new ships. Coming from the direction of the Vexani systems. War Chief Corvin had brought his fleet to help humanity. 500 Vexani warships dropped out of hyperspace alongside Earth's defenders. And they weren't alone. 3 other species that had secretly communicated with Tyler Brooks brought their own ships. The odds suddenly became much more even. This is War Chief Corvin. The reptilian leader's voice boomed across all channels. To the Council fleet. You claim to bring order and peace, but you brought only oppression. Today, the Vexani stand with humanity. Today, we fight for our freedom. On Earth, people watching the news saw alien ships fighting alongside human defenders. President Carter broadcast a message to all the rebel species. You are not alone anymore. Together, we are stronger than the Council's tyranny. The battle that followed was the largest space combat in galactic history. Thousands of ships fought in the space around Earth. The Council fleet, already weakened by weeks of raids, struggled against the combined human and alien forces. Jake Morrison commanded the Independence through the chaos. All fighters protect the Vexani carrier on our left flank. Amy, target that cruiser heading for the surface. Emma Davis led her pilots through waves of enemy fighters. Stay in formation. Watch each other's backs. On the surface, Ryan Foster and his ground forces prepared for the possibility of landing troops. Claire Watson coordinated civilian evacuations from cities that might be targeted. Every person on Earth was part of the war effort now. The battle raged for 18 hours. Admiral Kethrall watched his fleet being torn apart and realized he had lost. The humans had done the impossible. They had turned other species against the Council. They had broken the fear that held the Empire together. All ships retreat, he ordered quietly. Return to Council space. But many of his captains refused. Some thought they could still win. Others were too proud to run, and some had realized something important. If they returned to Council space having lost this battle, they would be punished severely. They might as well die fighting. In the end, only 400 Council ships escaped. 600 were destroyed or captured. The space around Earth was a graveyard, but Earth itself was intact. On the Council homeworld, the High Council received the news in shocked silence. Their greatest fleet had been defeated. Worse, multiple species were now openly rebelling. The Vexani had declared independence. 3 other species followed within days. This is a disaster, Lithara said quietly. Our empire is falling apart. We can send more fleets, Drethmore insisted. To fight whom? Lithara asked. The humans? The Vexani? The dozen other species who will rebel next week? We don't have enough ships to fight everywhere at once. The debate raged for days, but the reality was clear. The Council could not maintain its empire by force anymore. The fear was broken. Captain Tyler Brooks, now promoted to ambassador, led the diplomatic efforts. Species after species contacted Earth, asking to join the rebellion or seeking alliance. Within a month, 43 species had declared independence from the Council. Within 3 months, nearly 100. The Council's economy collapsed as trade routes were disrupted. Their military couldn't recruit enough soldiers to replace losses, and the member species who still supported them began demanding reforms. Jenny Wright, Earth's chief diplomat, traveled to the Council homeworld to negotiate. She didn't come as a conqueror. She came with a proposal. The Council can continue to exist, she told the Assembly, but not as an empire. As a true democratic union where every species has an equal voice and the freedom to leave if they choose. Some Council members resisted. Others saw the wisdom in her words. The old guard like Drethmore wanted to fight to the end, but moderates like Lithara understood that the only way forward was change. The negotiations took months, but eventually a new agreement was reached. The Council would be reformed as the Galactic Alliance, a voluntary union of free species. Any species could join or leave as they wished. Decisions would be made democratically, not by force. 2 years after the first ultimatum, Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Independence, now serving as a peacekeeping vessel. His crew had survived the war, though many others had not. Emma Davis commanded her own carrier now. Captain Steve Miller led diplomatic escorts. Maya Holmes headed the new joint communications network that linked dozens of species. Do you think the peace will last? Amy Palmer asked him. Jake looked out at the stars where ships from 20 different species traveled.